Hi, I'm Kevin Collier, and today I want to show off some of the things I've been working on in Unreal Engine 5.3 using Touch OSC. Before I dig into it too much, here's a little sample video.
Four, one, three, two, three, two,
4, 1, 4,
three, 3.
Alright, that was just a little overview using my iPad to trigger the Touch OSC. I'm not going to be switching over to using my desktop app because it's a little bit easier to capture this way. Bear with me as my Unreal screen is a little small. Usually I prefer to use the iPad, but throwing it on the desktop also works just as well. So let's go over what we just saw. Touch OSC is a network connection from Unreal or other programs on my computer. I also use it for Reaper that let me communicate and send messages back and forth. Usually for Reaper, this is for things like quick actions, maybe some MIDI controlling here and there. But for Unreal, this gives me the ability to test a lot of really cool meta sounds in the world and also control their parameters. So let's start by looking at the dials. The green dial is my first sound. That's the fire sound that we experimented with. Then I had this test audio count. Then I have a music player, and then I have the ocean. Let's start with the fire here. So if I click this, it triggers the fire sound to start, and then it goes into a loop. This also has a parameter on it called intensity. I can control this by turning down the dial or turning up the dial. I get the full extremes of that parameter. Whenever I'm done with it, I can click the next trigger box, and that triggers another one shot that kills the sound.
3,
For our test audio
1,
count,
4, 2,
when I press our
4,
main button, it
1,
triggers the voice.
3,
But this
2,
time when I turn the dial,
3,
it
1,
changes the
2,
pitch. This
4,
gives me
3,
free room to
1,
decide what
2,
pitch might sound best here.
4, 2, 4,
It also
3.
sounds a little funny. We can go ahead and stop that. If we look at the music player, this one's a little bit more simple. As it starts to play, I can turn down the volume and then turn up the volume. This is again connected to a input audio or input parameter in the meta sound. For example, if I go over into here, I have this gain 0. That's what's connected to this. My favorite so far is the ocean. So if I trigger the ocean, I move around here. This isn't capturing an input. This is capturing an output from the meta sound. This lets me see exactly where that parameter is, both in a float value and visually on the dial. How close am I to the sound? This is working based off of proximity using the attenuation setting in the meta sound. I think it's really satisfying to see that dial rise and fall as I get closer. It's be really valuable for testing where in the world do I need to be for a parameter to be where I want it to be. Makes things really, really iterative, really, really fast to explore. Also gives me a really great opportunity to explore what things might sound like in a world without having to wait for somebody to trigger them. Moving on to the next little bit here, I'm going to go ahead and turn my ocean off. Now you may have noticed these attenuation spheres. These attenuation spheres are all collision spheres or boxes, in the case for the fire, that are created when the sound is played. I get the attenuation info from the sound that's being played, and then I recreate that attenuation sphere or box and make it visual in the world. This way I don't need to go into each individual meta sound and click the box to make sure I can visualize the attenuation. I can just do it right here and right there. Makes it really, really simple to see where sounds are playing and where they are reaching to. Now these buttons over here to the right, these are different console commands that are useful to everyday life in the world of sound design. So enable visualizer will turn on our visualizers, debug sounds, we'll list the sounds we currently have active, visualize attenuation. I don't have any of these checked to visualize attenuation at the moment. If I did check it, that would make it so the visualizers would pop up. I can also reset the buttons and reset the strings here. I'm not going to do that quite yet. Now I also have these three dials here. These don't work quite as well as I would like them to, but they do move objects around in the world. Now it doesn't look super smooth when I don't have Unreal Engine active, since I am controlling Touch OSC. This looks a lot smoother using the iPad. But this is more so if I want to reposition where a sound might be, or if I want to move an object in the world out of my way as I'm trying to play test. Alright, let me turn off my ocean again here. Then we skedaddle over this direction. I should show you the animation. Now this also comes with a handy animation tester. So if I hit run fast forward, go back over here. If I hit run fast forward, that triggers that animation. Very handy. I also hit walk. Nice. Makes it very easy for me to test these animations in the world. Now this is really useful for any time you have audio attached to an animation. It's really simple to just load on the sound you want to play and then click the button to trigger the animation. Makes testing very, very simple. One more thing I showed off is this Unreal Mixer. These are all tied to sound classes. They have a solo button, a mute button, and there's a reset button. This resets it to its default value. Very, very handy. Now let's look at how I tell Unreal what sounds to play and where to play them. So I have this blueprint called OSC_master. This is where you enter in all the information for the sounds you want to play, where to play them, and any parameters you might want to follow or insert into the meta sounds. So for example, here I can select my meta sound source, fire. I can choose the item I wanted to play from. So if I want to play from this blue cube, and here I can enter in my parameter. So let's open up this meta sound source. So there's a lot of things going on here. Really, we only need to look at this input right here called intensity. This is going to switch between a handful of things in this meta sound, but the only thing we need to do for here, for testing, is type in that input into this text box. Now, if I wanted to trigger any custom inputs, which we do for the fire, I could type those in. So start would play that first one shot, then leads into a looping sound, and then stop would kill the sound. Now let's say we wanted to watch the output like we did with the ocean. At the bottom of these selections is this S4 input. This is different for each one. S3 input, S2 input, so on. If I make this unclicked, if I make this false, then I can type in the parameter here. Now let's open this up. That lets me watch any output. So this particular output is getting the distance from the Unreal Engine attenuation information. I'm throwing that into there. And that way when I move around in the world and I get closer to the object, that value will change on its own, and I'm just able to glance at it. Alright, let's talk about animations. So in my animation section here, we have 6 loaded. If I open these up, it's the same thing with the sounds. I can choose which NPC I want to trigger the animation. Then I can choose what montage. So let's say I wanted this to be the run montage. Now if there's a specific section in the animation montage, for example, if we start with a moving forward and then we have a looping run section, I could type in loop if that was the name of the looping section, and it would go right to the looping section. It would ignore the starting section. This animation doesn't have any of that, so we're going to erase that for now. Now, one of my favorite things about Touch OSC is how things are labeled and how I'm able to send information from the blueprint to Touch OSC. So if I go back over here, I reset my buttons and reset my strings. Really, really good starting space. Then I hit play. We can see it spawns a lot of information for us. So we get the name of each of those meta sounds that we inputted into our audio. We get the animations we tagged for us to play. We also get the names for the static meshes that we have selected to move around. Makes it really, really handy. Now, if I also go over here, if I trigger my ocean, you can see this number right here is going to change as well. Tells me exactly where we're at. Same thing would work for the fire. I start it, and then I move the dial. It gives me that live update of exactly where the dial is. Alright, let's look at the blueprint. Alright, here's our blueprint. I'm not going to go too much into this in this video. I'll make a follow-up video for setting up Touch OSC in those first steps. Basically what we're doing is we're making a network. We're entering an IP address. I have mine hidden in these little collapsed graph nodes. We create an OSC server. We unbind all events. And then we create new binded events. And then in here we have this massive switch on string. This lets us do all of the different things that Touch OSC is working with. So this is getting the name of the fader, or the dial, or the button that we're pressing. And it's also getting the information that's inside of that. So let's open up our ocean blueprint here. In this, we're doing a bunch of logic to decide if we should play a sound, if it's already playing. We don't want to have multiple instances of the same thing happening. And also at the end here, we can execute trigger parameters based on the information given in the details pane in editor. If I go up to the top here, this is where we're spawning those attenuation spheres. So we're getting the information from the sounds. We're getting whether it's a sphere, a capsule, or a box. Fortunately, I'm not able to do anything with cone yet. That might be coming up in the future. We make sure we have it all color-coded to represent the same dial color that we're using. Keep everything visually pleasing. And then over here, we're using the new MetaSound output subsystem. We're going to watch the output. We're going to update the radial, and we're going to get the float. This is that float from the ocean. Right here, the distance. And I'm sending an OSC message. This is being done twice. Now these are little macros I created. I'll open it up real quick and just do a quick scroll through. I made these so it was really fast for me to send multiple messages of multiple types. Everything for all the strings, all the dials. Makes it really, really quick and easy. Now that's a quick overview of Touch OSC. Thank you for taking time to watch my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep an eye out for the next video where I go into detail about how to set this up. Thank you so much.